Heart Foundation for Young Widows, an NGO that creates a safe space for widows to heal and to thrive as well. Very good morning to you, Oluwaseun. Great to have you on Lagos Talks.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
An absolute pleasure. You taking out the time, even though I know that Lagos traffic is doing one or two things, but the important thing is
Yeah.
technology is getting us out of a pickle.
Yes.
Always gets
Yes.
us out of a pickle at the end of the day. So
Thankfully.
yeah, so diving right into the conversation, talking about widowhood, especially here in Nigeria, it often goes beyond personal grief. For many women, it means battling harmful stereotypes. In some cultures, some widows are labeled as quote unquote unlucky. They're blamed for their husband's death or even accused of witchcraft, as it were. Others face some dehumanizing mourning practices, forced to shave their heads, wear mourning clothes for extended periods, or even being isolated from their communities. Now, as someone who has personally experienced this, Oluwaseun, I mean, how did these cultural stigmas affect you, if they did, in the early days of your journey?
Huh, where do I begin? Okay, so I lost my husband in 2020, and we were a young couple. We had two kids,
Oh wow.
and yeah, when I lost him, I found out I was pregnant. I think a few days later, I didn't even know. It was because my blood pressure was really high, and
Mm,
they were concerned about me, and so I had to be admitted in the hospital. So when they did a random check, they always do like a just to check everything, like they always say, and
right.
and I just got the results. Madam, we can't really treat you for this. Why? You are pregnant. Oh my God, So
You are pregnant.
it was very traumatic. And I wasn't aware of these societal stigmas. I mean, I've watched them in African Magic.
Mm,
You watch those things, and sometimes those things look like they happen to other people, but can't happen to me. Or they only happen in the villages, and they don't
right.
happen amongst educated people. So I was aware of certain things that that was expected of me, like shaving my hair, like you know, doing some things, some cultural practices like cooking, some sort of ritual set up. But
Mm,
one thing I made up my mind to do was that I was not going to partake in any single one. And it was a very, very tough decision to make. And I'm so glad that I had the support of my immediate family. That's
okay.
my parents and my siblings. And I also had the support of our church because Patrick was very dedicated in church. So in fact, the church took over the burial. They didn't allow the family do anything. They took over the
Mm,
burial side, buying the coffin, everything. They just took it completely off our hands. So I made up my mind because I remember that my father-in-law mentioned that some people from the village wanted to come to Lagos and they wanted me to gather Patrick's things, and then they would take what they wanted out of it. And after they finished taking what they want, then I would cook something. I would kill a goat or something like that, and make
huh.
some prayers and all that and all that. And I'm like, this guy was a young, struggling guy. What does he have that you want to come and take? I don't understand that part of it. So I told them that I was not going to do that. They were not welcome here. I had not seen their faces ever before in my life. So now
Imagine.
that the guy is dead, all of a sudden they just want to show up out of nowhere. So I told them that I was not going to partake in any cultural practice that would affect my mental health in a bad way. One of the other cultural practices I was expected to perform was to stay home for an extended period of time, to stay indoors, not to go out. And you know how medically lack of vitamin D, staying indoors all the time
That
causes
is
depression.
that is not
So
good at all.
imagine the depression I am already going through. Now, telling me I cannot just go out and take a breather or see other people or just go sightseeing because my husband is dead. The dead is gone. Why do we treat the dead better than we treat the living? Why did anybody ask, okay, what do you need right now? do to feel better. I didn't do any of those things because I found out I was pregnant. So I didn't want to do anything that will jeopardize the health of the child. And I know, I mean, being a mom, I know how your mental state affects an unborn baby.
True.
Yeah, it does. So I did not partake of any ritual, any. It was a very tough decision. People looked at me like I was wicked, or I was, or I didn't want to honor my husband. And I told them that, look, that's one thing I always say, that I loved and honored Patrick when it mattered the most, when he was alive to receive the love, when he was alive to feel it, when he was alive, to know, and he knew that I loved him. Everybody knows that I loved him. So I don't have anything to prove to anyone.
Mm.
So I told myself I was not going to partake in any of those things, and I did not. I did not.
Okay, but really quickly, because we need to take a break. But I'm just curious to know. I mean, you stood your ground. You stood on business and said you were not going to be involved in all of that. What was the reaction? I mean, from the family members who were bringing this to your doorstep, more or less, that you need to do these things. I mean, what then happened after that?
Well, till today, I've not heard from them I've not heard from them in years. So
Oh wow.
yeah. So that should tell you that we're no longer on speaking terms. That's practically, that's not even the only reason why that happened. That's not the only reason why. But I feel like that's part of it. But because I had my family solidly behind me, and that's one thing that a lot of widows don't have. They don't have a strong support system. Some of their parents and even their siblings are also entrenched in those traditions, so they expect her to go through it as well. But my parents were like, especially my dad, it was like, look, I'm not going to allow you partake in anything that will jeopardize your mental health. Anything you want to do, do. Anything you don't want to do, don't do. That was my dad's stance, in all of this. So, but their reaction wasn't so friendly. But I mean, I had to do what I had to do.
Had to do what you had to do, standing on business and standing your ground. I mean, fortunately, you had a great support system. And as you mentioned, not
Yeah,
too many women at the end of the day have that support, and they're outnumbered. And it just seems like there's
yeah,
nowhere else to turn than to
yeah.
succumb to what it is that they've been asked to do. And you just wonder why it's that way only where the women are concerned. There seems to be this unbalance, and we'll look at that on the other side of a quick break right here. When we get back in on Lagos Talks, we'll talk about that and
Okay.
a whole lot more. Keep it tuned to your love music, love life station, Smooth 98.1. We'll be back in a bit. Wow. Actually, well, like you said, I thought these things were Nollywood-esque. That okay, they already happened,
Hmm.
you know.
It was when I became a widow that I knew that those people are not lying. They are not lying about anything that they project in those movies. Every single thing that they talk about, it happens. It happened to somebody, and it still happens till tomorrow. It still happens to people.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Now, wow.
it does.
In
It does.
this,
I mean, you would think it's 2024. Trust me, when it comes to our traditions, we are still in the 1800s in Africa, even amongst educated people. I mean, I remember that my late husband's uncle is a pastor. When I knew that his religion did not have anything to do with his I mean, his religion was not, maybe he was not really a man of faith. Was when he said, according to our tradition. I'm like, oh, so your Christianity does not cover death and loss and everything. Is according to your tradition. One of the things that I made up my mind to do was that I was not going to go to their village, because if I had gone, I would have lost the battle from the get go. I
mm,
told myself I wasn't going to. And my husband even hated the village. He hated it so much. He told himself that he left there at 4 and he was never going to go back there. So why should I go back to somewhere where, they would have wanted to bury him there because he was the first son,
right,
but
right.
thank God for our church. That they just took over everything. They didn't even allow the family do anything.
Thank
So
good.
that was really,
Thank goodness
yeah.
for that. All right, let's get back into the conversation. All right, thanks for keeping it tuned to Smooth 98.1, your love music, love life, and of course, love conversation station as well. This is Lagos Talks, where we get to have discussions about anything and everything, bring them to the fore, and of course, talking about some very important, hard hitting conversations. That's what we love to do on Lagos Talks. My name is Ayokunmi, and it has been an interesting morning so far. If you're just tuning in, we're looking at breaking the stigma around widowhood in Nigeria. My guest is Oluwaseun Joan Stephen. She is the founder of the Patrick Stephen Purple Heart Foundation for Widows. Oluwaseun, welcome back into the conversation. It's great to have you this morning. And right, and a great opener into this conversation. I mean, looking at your experience and using that in order to, should I say, give more life to this conversation. And before we went into that break, I had mentioned that we're going to, unpack this seeming gender bias that there is. But before we jump into that, for you out there listening to us, you can join us on the discussion by sharing your thoughts, your messages, your questions, anything that you'd love to bring to the fore. You can do that on WhatsApp on 0809 444 0981. 0809 444 0981. That is the WhatsApp number. The studio line is 0201 4489981. 0201 4489981. We're also streaming on YouTube. You can find us at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Okay, when we talk about widowhood in Nigeria, it disproportionately affects women due to these entrenched, as we call, patriarchal systems. Now, while widows are often encouraged to, remarry, move on, um, widows are yeah, widowers, yes, widowers. They're often encouraged to remarry and move on. Life goes on and so on and so forth. Widows are judged harshly for doing the exact same thing. Also, inheritance laws, they play a significant role, with many widows deny their late husband's assets or properties. Now, Lushan, why do you think widows bear the brunt of these cultural biases while widowers seem to face a lot less scrutiny? And how did your foundation, help to tackle these inequities? Hmm. Really?
The red carpet, basically. They are expected to move on, they are expected to remarry. People are so sympathetic. I connected with a widower friend recently, over dinner. And when he was telling me people's reaction towards him, how people were constantly bringing food to his house, how people, were they were so supportive. And I was looking at him so strangely because his experience is starkly different to so many widows that I know. And it was
Hmm.
very, very interesting to hear that widows don't have the kind of support that widowers have, basically. And one of the things that my charity, my foundation is doing is creating awareness. That's one of my strong points, creating awareness. Apart from the fact that we cater to the needs of widows, paying rent, school fees, creating organizing therapy sessions,
Hmm.
organizing Valentine getaways for widows, taking them out on dates. Apart from all the things that we do, if you go through my page on Instagram, it is all. I also create content just highlighting the struggles that that widows go through, and it's a mixture of my experience and the experience of so many other widows
Right.
out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. I mean, you talked about some of the issues earlier on, and one that you mentioned is depression, and that is something that a lot of widows would definitely face. Mental health challenges, the psychological toll, it cannot be overstated at all. I mean, those feelings of isolation, of
Tell you
anxiety,
that.
of loss,
Yeah.
they are there. They're now compounded by this societal rejection. And for the younger widows, the burden of them thinking, oh, I need to raise the children alone, it then adds to this particular strain. So, and we know that mental health resources in Nigeria are limited to a degree, let alone for widows generally, leaving many to, suffer in silence. Now, can you speak to the role mental health plays in a widow's healing process, and what does your foundation do to support widows in navigating this very, very emotional journey? Because I know a lot of hand holding is necessary.
Mhm. A lot of hand holding is necessary, but unfortunately, a lot of that doesn't if that doesn't happen. You are expected to, just get up and move. Okay, he's dead. You need to start thinking about how you're going to feed your children. And having children is not just about having children. There's a parenting part of it.
That is true.
And in 2024, it has become harder to to parent children than it has ever been. You know, um, honestly, mental health plays a big role. And when my late husband died, that was when I found out that therapy is actually very expensive.
Mm,
You know, yeah, there are some companies who give their staff allowance to get therapy, and it can be as much as 40,000 naira per session for an hour, or 50,000 naira per session, or 20,000 naira per session. How many people in Nigeria can afford that? And let's say you need to have four sessions per month, maybe once a week, or let's say you need to have two sessions per week. How many people can afford that?
that's a lot of
You
money.
know, that's a lot of money. You know, one of the things that my one of the first things that my charity did was to organize therapy sessions. We have therapists that we work with. One of
Okay.
the people that we work with is Queen Muriel. She's highly trained, she's highly sought after, and she's very, very good at therapy. And therapy is not supposed to be a one-time thing. It's supposed to be, maybe
It's
you have like
continuous.
a
It's continuous
maybe
for a
over
while.
six, over 6 months. But because we're a charity and we can only afford to do so much for now, what we can do is give these ladies the tools so that when they are by themselves, when they are alone and they have triggers, and they feel like their mental health is being threatened, they know what to do
Mm.
when they are by themselves. So we organize therapy sessions maybe every 3 months. I will put these ladies in a room and allow them to unburden, because allowing people to unburden is also a form of therapy. Allowing them to
Okay.
just
Okay.
you know
Just
talk
talk.
and
Let it out.
exactly just listen to them. It's also a form of therapy. And some of them are stuck mentally. They don't know how to move from where they are. They don't know. I mean, they seem to be making progress. They are going to work and doing other things, but mentally they are stuck, and that really affects their parenting. That's why you see that people say that single mothers are angry people. People who raise, because raising children alone, you need a different set of skills than a two-parent household where you have support. So that's one of the things that we do. We provide therapy, and where we can afford therapy sessions for a group, we send widows to have one-on-one therapy with therapists, maybe twice a week, 3 times a week. We've done that several times. So that's part of the things that we do, and I'm very, very grateful that we've been able to do that so far.
That actually is very, very commendable, because I mean the number of people who are dealing with these issues, number of women who are dealing with issues like this, and as you said, for a lot of them, they look fine on the outside, And we can see this about a lot of Nigerians. They look fine on the outside, they're going to work every day, they are attending regular functions as if, oh, everything is honky dory, everything is fine. But on the inside, there's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot of headache and
Trauma.
heartache and trauma and so on and so forth going on. And truth is, when we talk about Nigerians and therapy, it's not something that Nigerians don't love to hear about. When they hear therapy, automatically it means there's a huge problem. And a lot of people do not want to admit to or even want to be associated with problems that have to do with the mind, because a problem with the mind for them
True.
automatically means, oh, the person is crazy, he's a mad person,
Yeah.
mental problem,
Yeah.
yaba left, and so on and so forth. So it's actually commendable that you are doing what it is that you're doing on one hand to, should I say, change the mindsets that you've gone through this thing. This is part of the healing process. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're abnormal or anything. It's just like, oh, you have an ailment, you are prescribed medication, or you're prescribed some sort of therapy to deal with it. So on one hand, if more and more people are open to the possibility of seeking help when they have these issues, especially when we're talking about widows, because I cannot speak to it clearly,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is, I mean, from what you said so far, all the help that widows can get to get themselves back to a place where they can begin to function normally, very, very,
Mm.
very important.
Yeah, therapy is actually really, really important because your mental health is everything. If you are okay mentally, and there are so many layers to depression, so many layers. Sometimes people can't get out of bed, they can't function, not because they are
Mm,
lazy, but they are just stuck mentally. There are a lot of widows. One of the things that grief does is affect your sleep. It's been 4 years since I lost my husband, and I cannot sleep normally at night. I mean, I've
wow.
never, I always marvel when people say they sleep for 7 hours, 8 hours, and that used to be me before, but now I can't. Like, I mean, I can be vulnerable. I can share with you that I did not sleep last night. I was awake all through the night, you know,
Hmm.
and it's not because I don't want to sleep. It's because I've been through so much trauma. I remember when Patrick died because I saw his body, the blood, and everything. I used to have nightmares, like constant nightmares. And it would take a lot of, prayer and, just a lot of work just to be able to go to sleep. A lot of shutting the doors, making sure that, the lights are off. And then I have 3 children to take care of. And any mom will tell you that having kids and sleeping is like polar opposites. They always need
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
Even in the middle of the night, they can walk up to you and tell you, I want to sleep in your bed, or something. So it's important to get help. And one of the things I always tell widows is protect your mental health. You might not even have funds to be able to afford therapy, but what can you do to protect yourself from the outside world, from in-laws, from toxic people, from toxic family members? You know, that will go a long way to help you, even when you can't get therapy.
Right, right. Very well said. Let's take a final break, and when we come back in, we'll take a quick look at the financial part of things, because, of course, we've seen a lot of these situations play out in movies where a woman loses her husband, and then boom, family members swoop in to claim property. She's financially
Oh,
challenged and all that. On the other side of this
mm,
break, we'll talk about that and a whole lot more that we can squeeze in before we end the conversation on Lagos Talks this morning on Smooth 98.1. Don't go anywhere.
yeah, yeah.
Ah,
Okay, so I'm finally close to you. I think I'll be able to do this one in studio.
okay. How close is close?
Yeah. We're at Kefi now. Where are we? Ribadu Road. Where's Ribadu Road?
Ribadu Road. Are you in Ikoyi?
No, we're in Kefi now. I know
Uh,
this area. We're
Kefi.
going to Kefi. Where are we?
Wait. Kefi is Ikoyi now.
No, okay, wait. Where is Lagos Talks again?
No. You're coming to Smooth. You're going to Smooth FM.
Is Smooth FM and Beat FM are on the same road, Abi? Same studio.
No, Smooth is in VI. Smooth FM is in VI, not Ikoyi. That was
Jesus Christ.
that was in the address I sent to you of Adela Odeku of VI.
We are going to off Adiola Odeku. Please let's go to off Adiola Odeku. Have you ended the right? Please off Adiola Odeku. Oh my God. I should change it on the map. No. Off Adiola Odeku. How do I change it on the map now?
Well,
Okay. So what's the exact address of Adiola Odeku?
it's for Amici Close. For Amici Close off Elito Ogabi.
Can you spell Amici?
AMICHI. You can just put in Smooth FM. That was the easiest thing. Smooth FM.
Oh, why did I put Beat FM? You know what? Even if I don't make it in studio, I'll still come inside.
No wahala.
Smooth FM. Is it 95.1?
98.1.
98.1. Okay.
We'll have to jump back in right now.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Class music. It just feels good.
All right, welcome back to Lagos Talks on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. It is a Wednesday morning, 49 minutes past 9 a.m. Ayokunmi here. We're having great conversation this morning, as we always do, as we love to do. And we are, talking about breaking the stigma surrounding widowhood in Nigeria. Yes, something that we don't talk about very often, but it is an issue of great importance. My guest is Oluwaseun Joan Stephen. She's the founder of the Patrick Stephen Purple Heart Foundation for Widows. She has been sharing her experiences as well as the amazing work that her foundation does to help widows in Nigeria to deal with the loss and, of course, help them to transition to leading normal lives, or as normal a life as is possible. And before we went on that break, I mentioned that we're going to talk about the financial side of things, Oluwaseun, because losing a spouse often plunges widows into financial insecurity, especially in cases where the husband was the family's sole breadwinner. You know those cases where the husband is the one who brings in all the cheese, and the wife is a stay-at-home mom and all that. She doesn't really have things going on her own side and all that. Some widows face exploitations by in-laws. We see these things in Nollywood movies and all that, and so on, but we don't think that these things actually happen. But those movies are based off of real life experiences, if you think about it. So looking at that and looking at what you do, I mean, is there anything you do in terms of empowerment programs to help these widows to regain their financial independence, more especially where they have children? That in itself puts a lot of pressure.
Nobody plans for their husband to die. But please have your own source of income. What is yours can never be taken away from you. Have a set of skills that if you get up tomorrow, you can and you put it out there, you can make money and you can take care of yourself and your children. It doesn't even have to be a whole lot of money. But one of the things, the poverty among widows is so great. And I've unfortunately seen widows who used to travel to Dubai. They used to drive. Now they have to ask people for money to take buses. And it's not a lie. It's not a joke. Their standard of living, I mean, one of the things that happens to children of widows is the shock of their father's death. Some of them never recover because some of them were in private schools. They had a certain standard of living, and their father dies, and that thing immediately changes. Imagine the impact of that on the mind of a child. I ask women this question, that if your husband dies today, will you still have the same standard of living that you have with him alive? I mean, let's say his property gets taken away, which happens 99% of the time. Will you still have the same standard of living? If your answer is no, then you need to sit up. If you have a husband that insists that you should not work, you need to reason with him. You need to make him see that, look, I'm not planning for you to die. And that's something that a lot of Nigerian men do. A lot of women have approached me and they say when they bring up the issue of, having a trust fund or wills or doing life insurance, the men will say, are you planning to kill me? No.
That is classic, a classic Nigerian
yes,
response.
exactly. Gaslighting. Nobody plans for you to die. Nobody plans for your death. But what if you do? I mean, especially if you're not even living healthy, especially if you travel a whole lot, and your job is high risk. What about the children that you are leaving behind? How will they cope? So it is not just widows that go through grief. Their children even go through worse grief that sometimes follow them into adulthood. Now, one of the things I always tell people that widows don't need pity. Widows need to be empowered. Yeah, forget that. We need to think about what next. What can we do to make her better? Last month, 15 widows were empowered by our foundation. 12 of them got 1 million naira each for their businesses. 3 of them got 500,000 naira each. Now, what I did was that I organized an event and I told them to send in their business plans and they would have to stand in front of a panel of judges and defend the business plans because we live in Nigeria. There are all sorts of people out there. And I need to know that this money that will be given to you, you will use it judiciously. So widows that already had businesses or wanted to start businesses but did not have the funds. So each of them got 1 million naira each, and at the end of the day, we spent 13.5 million naira empowering widows just last month.
Oh wow!
So they were in different industries. Some of them are seamstresses. Some of them are farmers. There are 2 of them who are farmers. And some of them are into photography. Some of them are into fish farming. Industrious ladies, hardworking ladies, but ends are not just meeting. And you know how the economy is. Some of them sell, they're into food business. They have a shop where they sell rice, where they sell gari and, things like that. So we empower them with this amount. And that's one of the things that my foundation is big on. I always tell the widows that, look, I'm all about meeting your needs, pay your school fees. But I don't want you to come and receive handouts for the rest of your life. You have to be able to, the whole purpose of my foundation is so that you can stand on your own 2 feet and you don't need me. And that someday you will come back and support, other widows as well. So my foundation is really, really big on empowerment and taking care of widows. Sure, we pay school fees. We paid over 40 million naira in school fees, in house rent, in different things for widows. And someone out there might be thinking, oh, maybe she's from a rich family. I'm not. When my husband died, I had exactly 4,000 naira in my account. 4K. No more, no less. In fact, we had not paid rent, and my children had been out of school for 2 terms. So imagine what we were going through. But I started by documenting my journey on Instagram, and then, people would send me requests like, oh, I'm a widow, I've been thrown out of the house by my in-laws, I don't have food, I don't have where to live. And then I will repost it, and then somebody will reach out to me that, okay, and can I send you 1 million naira so that you can solve this problem for this person? That is how this whole thing started. I didn't even want to do a foundation or anything, but as money came in, we knew that we had to legitimize and create some structure, So that's one of the things I would advise women. Even if you are not a widow, teach your daughters to stand on their own feet and not to be dependent on their significant other for money. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong in a man taking care of you. Who doesn't want that? Even I want that. I want the soft life, but also plan for rainy days, plan for emergencies. Because sometimes your husband might not die, but he might get in an accident. He might lose his job.
And he's not able to provide anymore at that point.
Exactly. So will he now lose his role as your husband because he can no longer provide? No. he will be grateful that he has a wife that can support. And also our men, don't tell your wife that she cannot work. Don't discourage her from working. There are lots of opportunities for people to work from home now, for people to find online jobs. Encourage her to do some of those. And some of our men, some of them have problems, I'm sorry to say, maybe because of tradition or something. They don't. I've heard some men that say they don't want a woman to work because they don't want her to be free. I know a man whose brother's wife, his brother died. So I encouraged him to introduce his brother's widow to our foundation. And he said he will not do that because he doesn't want her to be proud. He doesn't want her to be raising shoulder. And I'm like,
wow, wow.
no, I'm talking real life. I'm talking, and this man is a lawyer. This man is not an uneducated fellow. This man is a lawyer. He's educated. So I mean, there's so much work to do. And I always tell married couples, invest in life insurance. Life insurance does not mean you are planning for death, and death is not the only avenue that you can use life insurance. You can actually cash, the funds even while you are alive. If you have an emergency, you can use it. It's just something to make sure that if anything happens to me, my children will not suffer. And I always tell people have they create wills. One of the downsides of wills is that wills have to go through probate. Sometimes wills can be in probate for 3 years. They can be contested. They can use it to pay off the man's debt. But I always say that you should create a living trust. Create a living trust and name your beneficiary. Your beneficiary should be your child, your wife, or if you want to provide for your parents, fine, your siblings. Name a beneficiary. This person gets this. A living trust can hardly be contested because the name of the person is on the property.
Okay.
So nobody plans to die, but plan anyway. It doesn't mean that you are digging your own grave. It just means that you are a wise person and you truly care about your kids and your wife.
Wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts, Oluwaseun. Let me take some messages that came in on YouTube as we round up the conversation this morning. I wish we could, carry on, but time has absolutely flown by. This is something that definitely we will be revisiting. We'll see how we can make that happen. Ibukun on YouTube says, show is absolutely on point. Men need to plan to manage their families after they pass on. And further says, it's great that the foundation provides relief, but also goes further to empower widows to allow them to stand on their own. The discrimination widows face is appalling. She's doing great work. All right. That's somebody that appreciates what it is that you do. Oluwaseun, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Before we go though, for anyone listening out there who can on some level relate or know someone who someone who has lost a husband and would definitely benefit from the support that your foundation could give, where can we find you on social media?
Okay, my Instagram, I'm most active on Instagram. My Instagram is Oluwaseun.Joan Stephen. Joan is spelled Joan, then Stephen with the PH. So some people call it Joan. Oluwaseun.Joan Stephen. Let me put it that way so it's easy for people to it's easy for people to find. So that's where that's how it's spelled on social media. When they come on social media, one of the things that they have to do is they have to go through a verification process because we've had a lot of people, even men, who take on fake identities and say that they are widows.
No way.
So
come on.
Yeah, we live in that kind of society, and we find out that they are still married or they are not widows. So they have to go through a verification process. They have to submit some documents that can prove to us without reasonable doubt that they are widows. We even go visiting people just to do our verifications.
Right.
Also, we have a website, Patrick Stephen Purple Heart Foundation for Widows.org. We have a website. You can just go on our website. We have over 200 widows registered on our website. And one of the things why we register widows is because to create representation. Sometimes people don't know that there are young widows in Nigeria. They think that everybody is a widow is over 70 or 60. So you see women who are 27, 28, And we also have a program on our in our foundation called the Adopt a Widow program, where people can just go and look at a widowed family and support them with an income every month. There are over 50 widows in our foundation who have been adopted by people all over the world, and they get an income from these people every single month. So you can take a look at our website also, Patrick Stephen Purple Heart Foundation for Widows.org.
Absolutely fantastic what it is that you do. And it's really commendable that you've been able to put your best foot forward, turning your pain into purpose. Thank you so very much for joining me this morning on the
Okay,
show. An
super. Thank
absolute
you so much for
absolute
having
pleasure.
me.
All right. Have a great Wednesday. We'll definitely be having more conversations. We'll cook, as I love to say, we'll cook something up at the end of the day.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Thank you all so much for being a part of Lagos Talks on the Smooth Breakfast this morning. And of course, keeping it tuned to Smooth 98.1. Don't go anywhere though. There's great music lined up for you to get you settled into your hump of the week, Workday Wednesday. Alrighty.